Trump's favorite oligarchs, billionaires, are sure to be in attendance, but one VIP who's skipping the event is former First Lady Michelle Obama. Michelle's rep issued a statement confirming that the former president will attend, but not the First Lady. Is she right or wrong?
Yes, Lord, she is so right. She is so right. She gave us that when they go low, we must go high.
She changed that one.
And I think she's changed her tune. I think when they go low, you have to meet that energy and perhaps go even lower, become small like an ant and go to the earth's crust.
I have never seen a group of women hate Donald Trump with such intensity, sustained intensity, as the women on The View. At least some of the women on The View, because I know some of them don't like him. I know they've chosen not to vote for him, but the hatred? So we're a few days out from, 3 days actually out from the inauguration. Trump will be taking office for his second non-consecutive term. And of course, you've heard Whoopi Goldberg and several of her other associates say that they will not be watching the inauguration. I don't know how that's going to play out. They're on a top-rated show. You're not going to watch what is going to be probably the biggest event on Monday in U.S. history? In 2025, you're not going to watch that? It only happens every 4 years. You're not going to watch that? So in today's episode, they kicked off the conversation talking about the fact that Michelle Obama, former First Lady Michelle Obama, is not going to be attending the inauguration. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. And to people's point, Trump skipped Biden's inauguration. Okay, I thought that was disgusting because at the end of the day, even if the wives don't show up or the former first ladies, I do expect former presidents to show up. So him not showing up I thought it was very petty and very unbecoming of the office that he once held. Michelle Obama choosing not to be there, I really couldn't care less. I really couldn't. You see, she skipped Jimmy Carter's funeral, and it seems like this is now a trend with her because she doesn't want anything to do with Donald Trump and his family. But at least Barack Obama is going to be there and the other former presidents. And I'm actually happy that the men are coming and deciding to go there because, like I said, considering the office that you once held, I think you do owe it to the people to be there. So I think Donald Trump majorly aired when he decided not to. But I'm happy to see that these men are being real men and stepping up. Considering the way that the former first ladies behaved at Jimmy Carter's funeral, maybe it's in their best interest and our best interest as the viewer for them not to show up because they don't know how to behave. So let the husbands come, the former presidents, let them come to the inauguration and show the world that America is capable of, bridging gaps and being men. Being real men. So let's take a listen to the conversation here on The View because, and this was a good episode, by the way, they never fail to disappoint. Let's go. Roll it.
What I will say is she said that she did not enjoy Trump's 2017 inauguration because there was no diversity, there was no color on that stage. She said there was no reflection of the broader sense of what America looks like, and many people took pictures of her, and she just wasn't in a good mood. But I want to show a clip of what she said at the DNC, which I really think hits home.
For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black.
Yeah. And I think when you see that, you understand why she wouldn't go.
You see, here's the issue, and I first of all, I agree wholeheartedly with Michelle Obama, and listening to her say that, I felt her pain. I understand exactly where she's coming from with that. And it is very difficult to support someone who you feel has wronged you or been very divisive or been very disgusting and dismissive and hurtful to your people. I certainly get that 100%. So I feel her. The issue here is, for me, that Michelle Obama is also that person who famously said, when they go low, we go high. And so you don't get to cherry pick when you go high. If you set a standard for yourself where you always go high when people go low, then you don't compare yourself to them. You don't do what they would do. and you don't act the way that they would act. You act better than that. And I think I was really pleased when Sara Haines said something to that effect on this platform.
It's kind of like, as a parent, I always say, we do not let the worst example among us set the bar for us. We do better when we know how to do better. And so for me, I don't mind Michelle Obama not attending. Again, their family has given so much to this country. They have done so much that at this point, the tradition is the people that were in office, the presidents, the vice presidents, the senators. Tradition. I don't care what Donald Trump does. I will not stop fighting. And if we think what Donald Trump is, and none of us here voted for him, if we think he is all those things we said, then you continue to do your job harder. You show up.
That's exactly how I feel about it. At the end of the day, I don't want to compare myself to somebody who I don't think is mature. You know, that's not my standard. That's not my standard. I have to operate differently. So in that vein, you know, I can understand why people would be disappointed that she would sit out the inauguration. I couldn't care less. Trust me, I don't. Because, like I said, as long as the former presidents are there, that's all I care about. And I think it will just go over really well.
You know, what bothers me is the capitulation that's going on everywhere. I mean, at this point, Michelle, Nancy, Kamala, and Karen Pence are standing up against Trump. The men are folding like cheap suits.
It's the women. It's just
the
like
women.
And by the way,
I agree. I just want to say, this is not a normal inauguration.
No.
This is not a normal person.
Right.
He's a convicted felon. Why do they go as if this is a normal inauguration?
And
it's
listen,
not.
Because the weakness it presents to the friggin' globe when you have presidents that say, just because of this, we're not going to... The America voted. The normalizing of President Trump happened when the American public went out and voted.
And, you know, in the last video, I think it was the video what I did on the California wildfires where I was critical of the mayor, Bass. I said in that video that watching how she performed and watching how, you know, certain women were reacting, I understand now why so many people are very apprehensive about wanting women in leadership roles. And when I said that, there were a ton of people who identified as women who said, I'm a woman too, and I agree with that sentiment. They agreed. And of course, there was a woman, I think it was a woman who said, you know, you're a misogynist. She called me a misogynist. I'm not saying that women, I'm not a misogynist for the record, but I'm not saying that women can't lead. I have led before. I know women who have led beautifully before, but I can tell you, I've also been in environments where women were leading and they're just too emotional. A lot of them are incredibly emotional. And when I look at this bunch of women, and I'm not just talking about The View, but like the former first ladies and them saying, oh, I'm just not going to be there. And people say they're not going to be there off of principle, or they're doing the right thing, or they don't want to legitimize this man. You don't have to legitimize anything. The voters, the millions of voters who voted for him, legitimized him. They said that this is who we want. And it was resoundingly clear that that's what they wanted. So if you don't want to legitimize him, it doesn't matter. He's still going to be swearing, taking his oath of office. But it's the pettiness, and it's the snarkiness, and it's the emotionalness that I don't like. You know, just be able to stand up. And I love the fact, you know, Joy Behar said, oh, the men folded like cheap suits. No, the men didn't fold like cheap suits. The men did what I expect men to do. If you're going to be in a leadership role, you're going to have to leave those emotions to the side. And know that, hey, I don't like this person, but I'm going to come to work and I'm going to do what I have to do because this is what the job calls for. It always kills me when people say stuff like that, like, oh, I'm not going to legitimize this person. I'm not going to play nice with this person. And if I don't like them, some of you go to your jobs that you come on TikTok and Instagram and all these different places and say that you hate your job and you hate your boss and you hate your coworkers. You legitimize them every single day when you go there. You know why you go? Because you want a paycheck. The women on The View, do you think they all like each other? Do you think they like all their producers? No. They sit next to one another and they kiki. They probably talk about each other behind their backs, but they legitimize one another. They're there. And it's funny to me when I hear the women, and I was going to do a video on this a couple days ago when the ladies at The View were taking umbrage to the fact that Carrie Underwood is slated to perform for the inauguration. She's going to sing. And they were like, oh, why would she legitimize this man? And why would she perform for him? Because she's an artist and it's her right. Whoopi Goldberg, surprisingly, came to Kerry's defense and said, listen, I don't want anybody telling me where I can't perform, so I'm not going to tell people where they should perform. And she defended her in that vein. She doesn't agree with it, but she's like, I'm not going to tell people where to perform. I don't know where we got off doing this. Kerry's decision to perform might be just as she said it is. You know, she just wants to do her bit to unify the country. I remember when Trump had his inauguration, and in the run-up to that, so many artists were dropping like flies. Jennifer Holliday, who was from the famous Dreamgirls, the original Dreamgirls, she was slated to perform, and then her fans were like, oh, we'll never support you again. And then she dropped out. And there were other people who were slated to perform, and then they just dropped out. And it was hard for the Trump camp to get people to perform at the inauguration. And I just was like, if you're an artist and you truly believe there's nothing wrong with you performing, why would you allow people to bully you into not performing? A lot of times people say, oh, I'm never going to support you again. I'm not going to buy your album again. I'm not going to watch your movies again. If you really knew those people, they probably weren't buying your album in the beginning. They probably weren't supporting you in any way, shape, or form. They're just saying that. It's like when I did that video on Starbucks and people were talking about, oh, I'm going to boycott Starbucks. A lot of people who weren't even paying to be in Starbucks weren't buying anything, just sitting there mooching off of Starbucks talking about they're going to boycott. That's probably a good thing. So you can't, I'm not telling businesses not to be cautious, but at the end of the day, people will say whatever they feel to rile you up. Oh, I'm not going to support this artist anymore. So good on Carrie Underwood for deciding that, you know what, I am going to perform. And if you don't like it, then that's fine.
Somebody else who's not happy these days is First Lady Jill Biden, who just gave an exit interview to the Washington Post, where she admitted that she was, quote unquote, disappointed by how her friend of 50 years, Nancy Pelosi, handled the controversy that led to her husband stepping down.
Well, she's very protective over her husband, and I appreciate that. We've always known that about Jill Biden.
But shouldn't she be able to separate business from friendship?
So this is the hypocrisy for me right there. Joy just said that shouldn't Nancy Pelosi and Jill Biden be able to like kind of separate business from the personal side or business from their friendship? So shouldn't those former presidents, those ex-presidents, be able to separate business from personal? Shouldn't they be able to say, personally, I don't like this guy, but because of business, I will do the right thing? I don't even think she catches herself or she even thinks about these things before she speaks. Men are so different from women. So very different in terms of their leadership. I'll share a quick story with you guys. So I used to work in, I'm not going to say where I used to work, and I'm not, because I just try to keep that stuff separate, right? But I worked in an environment where I was a leader in my organization, one of the leaders. And I had a very tough boss. I love him to this day. Like, he remains one of my absolute favorite bosses, like hands down. But he was a tough boss. And he and I would bump heads all the time about certain things. And he wanted me and one of my other leadership colleagues to do something we didn't agree with. It wasn't anything unethical, okay? Because I ain't doing that. It was nothing unethical, but it was just we had a difference of opinion about how we should approach something. And I remember him calling me on the phone. He was yelling, boy. He was screaming, just do it. Do how I want to do it. And I was just like, you know what? This is company. I don't write the checks around here. This is what he wants? Fine, I'll just do it how he wants. And I was so angry. And my anger, and this is why I tell you, women can be emotional. I can be emotional too. So for 3 months, I didn't speak to my boss. Now you might say, how did you not speak to your boss for 3 months? Well, I spoke to him in a professional capacity, but like the conversations that we used to have before where it was really congenial, all that stuff, like that just went out the window. I was just like, okay, I so disagreed with that decision. I'm just going to keep it real sterile with you, right? So this was like towards the end of the year. So it was like October, I didn't speak to him. November, December, I didn't speak to him. So anyway, we had a Christmas party inside of our organization. And I was going into the room to get some food. And my boss saw me and he said, hey, Rogan, I have something for you. And I was like, what is it? So he gives me this envelope. His envelope was like super big, heavy quality envelope. And I was like, okay, thanks. I put it underneath my arm and I'm walking over to go get me a drink. And he says, why don't you open it? And so I was like, I'll just open it when I get back to my office. He's like, just open it now. So I opened it And it was the most beautiful card with the most beautiful words, you know, things that he was saying to me, which really meant a lot to me. And inside the card was this check. And it was a really good check. And I was like, what's this for? And he's like, well, we did really well this year. And I just wanted to, you know, give you something because you're part of this company and you played an instrumental role. So that was very significant to me because this was a year when we were in a recession and a lot of my colleagues across the industry, they were being like laid off from their jobs. Like that was like, they were the first to go. They just laid them off. And my company didn't lay off anyone. Like he kept everyone in place. I don't even know, only by the grace of God. I don't even know how it happened. And so for that year, for my colleagues to be getting laid off, but for me and my other colleagues to get a bonus, that was a big deal. And so he reached over and we hugged. And I said to him, you know, I'm surprised to even get this, but like, you know, I haven't been speaking to you for like 3 months. And he was like, yes, you have. I was like, no, I have not been speaking to you for 3 months. He's like, you haven't been speaking to me for 3 months? We talk all the time. I said, yeah, an email and we converse, but I don't talk to you. You don't notice you didn't notice I was mad at you? No, I didn't notice you were mad at me. I'm not mad at you. And he's like, Merry Christmas. And he walks off. And I'm like, oh. So I'm here angry this whole time. Me and my other colleague, we were both like, we're not talking to him. She was a woman too. And I was like, this man didn't even check it for us. He probably had the 3 months of silence. Like, oh, thank you, Lord. Let me give this gal a bonus. She ain't been harassing me for the past 3 months. Oh, yeah, I mean, everything been good around here. He probably was so happy to give me that bonus. And I say that story just to say this, that men and women just operate differently. We here, and let me say this, because y'all love to come and say, that ain't every woman, that ain't every man. Of course, it's not every woman, it's not every man. Don't be so obtuse. Do you think I need to say that for every single time? Okay? I'm just saying, I've just noticed a big difference between the way the two operate. Okay? And I'm talking about when you're dealing with men who are men, okay? And what do I mean by that? Men who are men. Men who are not womanish, who don't get emotional. You know, they just operate like men and they just move differently. And that's why I think these women can sulk and say, oh, I'm not going to attend this and I'm not going to. And then the men can step up. It's not folding like no cheap suit. It's men stepping up and being real men and doing what needs to be done. Anyway, drop your comments down below. Let me know what you all think about the fact that Michelle Obama and several of these other women will not be attending the inauguration. Do you care? Or are you like me, like, good? Then maybe it'll just go smoothly. Tell me what you think. Also, if you care to weigh in on the conversation about women and men in leadership, feel free to weigh in. I know a lot of you will disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. See, around here, you can disagree with me, and I ain't gonna block you. Okay, I ain't gonna block you because you disagree. If you be nasty and just cussing up a storm and all that stuff, yeah, you might get blocked. But I am not quick to block people. I promise you. From I've been on this platform, I don't even know if I've blocked 8 people. I really do not even know if I've blocked 8 people. I seriously, that's 5 years of people talking trash to me, telling me to go back to my country and all kinds of stuff. I know someone's going to come into the comment section and say, you have internalized misogyny. Yeah, no, I don't. I just call it as I see it. I'm so sorry. I love women in leadership. I've had wonderful women leaders whom I respect, I admire, I would go to bat for on any given day. And I've had some women leaders who I'm like, I will run from the hills, run for the hills from them, because they just, if they mad at their husbands or they mad at their boyfriends, they're taking it out on us. A lot of different stuff. Or if you challenge them or you say, hey, I disagree with something, they act petty and they punish you for it. Meantime, I had a whole boss for 3 months. He didn't even know I was mad at him and still turned around and gave me a bonus.